it's easier for me to do it. I still get to eat dinner with my child, and then I don't have a commute home afterwards. So those are the positives. But the meetings tend to go longer just because it's all the stuff we have to manage and all it's just a slower process with Zoom.
Yeah.
The one on Monday night went till almost midnight.
I know. I hung in there.
Yeah, you were there.
That was rough, and I just came in at around 9:30 when you guys were going to kick into 5:31, and it was like an hour later. They were really behind.
Yeah, I didn't think they would get as far as they got with that other application, like at all. I was not anticipating that, so it is what it is.
Yeah. Speaking of that, before I forget, I should actually start off by saying Charlene hello, everybody. We just got Sam in Virginia, and I think Ron is going to be joining us also. Charlene had emailed me. She's hopefully in Florida. I neglected to ask which side of the coast. Is she on the West Coast, Virginia? Her parents, her father now?
Yeah, I believe it's East Coast.
Oh,
I'm
East
not
Coast.
sure.
Okay.
I'm
just thinking about that hurricane, but she wanted to go down. I see Ron is in too. She wanted to go down because she's bringing up her dad apparently.
Oh, good.
This weekend, so she needed to get down. He, I guess, didn't do enough to get the place ready for the move. So I told her that we would be able to muddle through without her tonight. So Ron is in now, I see. Ron, can you hear us?
That's correct. Can you hear me?
Excellent. Just, Julie, are you going to mute all of us once we get rolling, or do we leave it open like this tonight?
So whatever your preference is, I actually don't like to be the one muting everybody because I have trouble unmuting people. So I prefer it if you guys use your own discretion and mute yourselves. For some reason, the hosting unmute thing doesn't really seem to work very well.
Okay, and I did notice, by the way, on Monday night, you guys were bombed a little bit there, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't. I actually didn't. It didn't bother me that much. I only noticed it one very small time.
It was really annoying to me. I only heard it that once, but anyhow, I'm sorry, I got a little distracted. I should also say that I emailed Chris and Severio from Chris Latham and Severio Fulciniti from 531 Main Street. I watched the CPDC meeting. I don't know if anybody else did, but the result of it was that the 531 folks significantly modified their plans, which everybody has seen. However, they received a whole host of substantive comments, the result of which is going to cause them to go through some redesign work. So I had, and we can talk about that if folks want to, but I had figured that I didn't want to unduly waste their time, since the plan that we were going to be seeing tonight wasn't going to be the plan they were going to be submitting. So I suggested if they wanted to, we'd be happy to have them come, but if they wanted to defer till the next meeting, they could do so. We went back and forth, and then he ultimately decided that they will take us up on that. So we're not going to see them at 7:30. I don't know about the folks at 8:30. I did go back and forth with Guy and Brooks. Those are the folks at 16 Eaton Street. He did say to me that he would discuss joining us. I see Jacqueline is here too. He did say that he would get back to Brooks to see whether they would be joining us and let me know promptly, but I haven't heard back from him. So they may not be attending at 8:30 as well. So this may be a relatively short meeting. But since it is 7 o'clock, without further ado, and I see that that Jacqueline is here for the first portion of the agenda. Let me open the meeting. And I guess everybody got the agenda. So we are going to have a conversation with Ms. Lee regarding 61 Grand Street. I think folks had seen it. I don't recall, this is going back a ways, but Jacqueline, may I call you Jacqueline?
Yep.
That would be great.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. I'm Jonathan Barnes.
Hi.
I'm the chair of the CPDC. I guess we should go around and introduce everybody. But just before we do that, I just want to say that Jacqueline had contacted the town, Amanda, through the Historical Commission forwarding address with some questions about some renovations and projects she wanted to, or they wanted to do on their home at 61 Grand Street, which is on our inventory and our list of historic structures. The back and forth basically indicated that much of the work that they were seeking to do did not rise to the level of requiring even a permit for the work, although some of it apparently did, but we're going to talk about it to find out exactly what it is. And I had indicated that in terms of coming before the Historical Commission, that if the work that the applicants were seeking required a demolition permit, and a demolition permit is needed even if it's not an entire demolition, but that's up to the building inspector. But if the work that is being sought requires filling out a demolition permit, then that would necessitate coming before the Historical Commission for the demolition delay hearing. We don't know whether that's necessary, and we offered Jacqueline an opportunity to come before us just to discuss what her plans were, and here we are. So why don't we, I guess, go around the table and introduce ourselves. I guess I should probably ask people to do that, and I'm just going to go off of a list that I have, starting with Amelia.
Hi, Amelia Friedman, Secretary.
Hi.
Virginia.
Virginia Adams, a longtime member of the Historical Commission, associate member.
Sam.
I'm Samantha. I'm a member.
Pino.
Hi, I'm Pino Durazio. I'm an associate member.
Jack.
Jack Williams, I'm the treasurer. And Ron, do we have a quorum here?
We do have a quorum. And I was, after we got through the introductions, I was going to designate Virginia in the absence of Charlene. But Ron, would you introduce yourself, please?
Ron Weston, associate member.
So that's the group, and Charlene is missing. We have another attendee, I see.
It's my son, Zachary.
Hi, Zachary.
Hi, Zachary. Nice to meet you. So, Jacqueline, let me turn it over to you. As you can see, we are somewhat informal, but why don't you present to us however you wish what it is you'd like to pursue, and then we'll just have a general conversation about it.
Okay. Great. Thanks for having me on the agenda, and nice to see some of you guys again. I came to the Historical Commission when I first bought my house in 2013 or so. So now, after living in here for a while, and with my son and maybe another on the way, we're looking to reconfigure the space better for my children. And so I know from before, and I don't know if it's changed, that the Historical Commission was originally concerned with more things that was, one, that I don't demolish the house, and which I never would, because this is our forever home. But two, I guess that anything to the exterior of the house you guys wanted to know, but my understanding was anything in the interior of the house that we were fine with renovating and that you guys didn't need to review.
Can I just clarify a little bit for you?
Yeah, please.
There may be some confusion between us, the Historical Commission, and the Historic District Commission. The Historic District Commission, which has jurisdiction over properties in the Historic District, which currently is on a certain area of West Street and a certain area of Summer, but it does not have jurisdiction over Grand Street. It's the Historic District Commission that is primarily interested in exterior renovations and or anything that is viewed from the street. And they would have jurisdiction, Jacqueline, if there were some modifications that you were proposing to the exterior, the historic, they would have jurisdiction if you were within the historic district, which you are not. So that is not the case. The Historical Commission, which does have jurisdiction to the extent the bylaw provides, effectively, as you pointed out, is primarily responsible for the demolition delay process, which would apply if an applicant were seeking to fully demolish the house. But just to be clear, for properties that are within our authority, we do have an interest in the inside of the house as well as the outside of the house. But to be clear, if you are not, as I said, if you are not seeking to fully demolish the structure, or alternatively, if what you are seeking to do does require you to pull a demolition permit, and that's a decision for the building inspector,
Yep.
then we will be involved, and there will have to be a hearing under section Article 7.2 of the bylaw. I hope that clarifies it a little bit.
Yep. No, thank you. There will, and I guess you let me know what parts you're interested in. As far as the demolition is concerned, there is an extension porch on the back of our house that's not original to the home, that we were going to enclose and make another living room. And so I'm at the early stages with an architect, and I still have to get contractors, but I don't know if it's going to involve just enclosing the existing space, taking out the screen doors and creating walls, or if it means that they're going to demolish the whole patio and create the extra room in that space. So that's one part of the demolition. The other piece is that there is a closet wall that's next to our fireplace that we were going to open up and open up the wall from the kitchen to the dining room, as well as there's a servant stairs in the kitchen that we are going to potentially remove the center stairs in the kitchen so that it can open up the space in the kitchen. As far as the basement stairs, it would have to be brought up to code. So the basement stairs would have to be rebuilt. We couldn't modify the existing stairs.
Okay.
So I'm just going to turn off the oven real quick so it doesn't.
Sure. Virginia.
I think it's worth it to point out that the commission may not have jurisdiction over all of these aspects, but they certainly have a lot of experience and can offer suggestions.
Fair point. I did raise that in an email that I had sent back before, and we will discuss that as well. Okay, Jacqueline is back. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I guess the only other thing is that the side entrance, again, it's a portion that wasn't original to the home, that we were going to create a new staircase for a side entrance and potentially add a wheelchair ramp.
Okay. Was that basically the list of items that you were contemplating?
Yeah, so I think the major demolition part is the patio, the back porch, and removing the servant staircase. The main staircase would remain. It's the servant staircase that's in the center of the kitchen going up to the master bedroom and to the attic.
Gotcha. Well, I guess let me start off, and then I'll just sort of open it up to everybody. And Julie, obviously, I know I don't need to tell you this, but your comments are also welcome in this discussion. And I might suggest, Jacqueline, I don't know whether you've spoken to the building inspector, but as I said at the outset, it sounds like obviously none of these constitute the full demolition of the structure. And I'm glad to hear that you are contemplating that. So right off the bat, that would seem to indicate to me that, at least in terms of the first criteria, it's the Historical Commission demolition delay hearing process does not apply. The second part of that process is, however, as I said, if any of these items, and particularly the extension porch in the back that you're talking about enclosing or removing the stairway, if those would require from the building inspector what is called in the town a demolition permit, then it would require coming before us. I do not know, and Julie, I don't know whether you know or whether anybody else knows, but the key question would be, from the building inspection department point of view, do those proposed actions require a demolition permit?
I would have to defer to Glenn on that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess maybe it might depend on like how they would come down. And like maybe it would be a partial demolition.
Okay.
Or I can't really answer that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But Jacqueline, thanks, Julie. If you're following me, and it's a little bit technical, but from the building department, and you may want to consult with the building inspector and ask in that department whether or not the work that you're contemplating, what permit it requires. Because if it does require what is called in the town a demolition permit, then what that would mean is that you would be required under Article 7.2, which is in the general bylaws, and they're online if you want to see them. But that then would require you to have file an application with us for a demolition delay hearing, and we would then schedule the hearing, and we would then deliberate on it. I can tell you that the result of it, since it's not a full demolition, would likely not result in our imposing what is the only formal thing we can impose, which is a 6-month delay on the process. But it would at least require you going through the hearing process. That would not be any more intimidating than this evening with us tonight. So it's not a big deal, but it's just some process that you might have to go through. That's that. And before I turn it over to everybody else, I do want to say what I did suggest in an email to you that Virginia has pointed out. Even if you are not required as you go forward with these projects, even if it's determined that you don't have to submit anything to us again under the bylaw, we would be more than happy, and we would in fact welcome your coming to a subsequent meeting and reviewing with you whatever it is that you're looking to do in terms of design or structural changes. We do have some of us more than others have experience with respect to the historical architectural integrity of the home, and we might be able to at least provide some informal guidance or advice to you. So that's the best that I can say. Anybody else have any comments at this point?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Virginia?
Well, we should point out the advice is free.
Even better.
Fair point. Okay. Anything else? Is that helpful to you?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
I do have one question. I know you're mentioning, I do know the side entrance, at least I believe I know the side entrance in viewing the house from Grand Street. You mentioned an extension porch on the back, and you mentioned that it's not part of the original house. Just as an aside, I only notice in our form that we have when this house was put on the inventory, listing the history, the architectural history and the cultural history. It doesn't mention any major alterations that were made to the house. So I wasn't otherwise aware that there was anything added onto it. I don't know if anybody else has any information about that, but I would have assumed that was original, but I appreciate your commenting that it's probably not.
Yeah, I don't think they would have this type of porch in the 1800s. To be honest, it's with the it's like, I don't know if it's a 3-season or 4-season porch, modern wood. That's one of those, not a water resistant wood. So,
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah. I mean, if they had in the 1800s, I mean, that would be incredible. But
well, I don't see it on the. We do have a map that shows it on our inventory, and I don't necessarily see it there. So I will take it that it was an addition. Either way, it doesn't really make much difference in terms of the conversation we're having. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope that's helpful.
No, thank you. So I guess after I talk to for the building permits, do I seek out, do I make an appointment with you, or does the building permit people set up the hearing?
They are aware. It's a good question. They are aware of the structures that are on our inventory. So when somebody comes in and asks for a permit for work to be done, if it does involve a demolition permit, they will know that. The building inspector will know that, and he or the administrative assistant in the office will know that that before you can commence the work, that you will have to go through the hearing process. So they will contact us and they will let you know.
Okay, so they'll initiate hearing process.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Any other comments from the commission members? Okay, hearing none. Back to you, Jacqueline. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. Thank you so much for everyone's time, and well, I probably will be talking to you guys soon again. So. Okay.
Well, we would look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
You have a great evening.
Thank you. You too. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Okay. We have, I see a few minutes before 7:30, and we'll probably have time then, so we can sort of take up other issues on our agenda. Sam, are you, I know I had included the archives policy manual. Are you comfortable? I know you weren't at our last meeting. I don't remember whether I followed up with you about this. I know everybody has seen it, and I hope everybody has read it. Are you prepared and comfortable if we were to go forward with a discussion tonight about that? I'm not saying now because it'll probably take more than 10 minutes, but.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Or we could at least go over a couple portions, and if there's any feedback or anything people want to add, I can make notes. That'd be great.
Okay, we'll get to that. Just taking a couple of things out of order. I'm presuming on 7981, I think everybody saw the email that I sent to Glenn following our last meeting. I'm aware that the applicant ended up contacting the town seeking to be put on our agenda for the September meeting. He obviously didn't follow up with anybody in the inspections department. So I sent another email suggesting that he contact the building inspector, which I take it he did, because the building is now demolished, as I presume folks have seen. So Ron, we'll probably have to. Can I ask you to include that on the list that you've been maintaining for us?
So the change is on deck.
Great. Sad to see that building go, but I take it the neighbors are not that unhappy. Sorry, somebody want to say something? No. Okay. Just taking a couple of items out of order on 186 Summer Ave. This was my error after I reviewed Amelia's minutes. By the way, great job, Amelia. Thank you. I discovered that I was supposed to have followed up with Criterion to see if they wanted to come to the meeting. I did not write that down at the time, so I neglected to do it. I know we also talked about the possibility of having the site inspection. I had a brief conversation with Everett as I was walking past his house the other day, and he commented, and I've noted that there is a brace up on the pergola in the front of the house, a wood brace on the pergola in the front of the house. Just looks as though the structure of the pergola needs some additional support. Have no idea what else is going on with the rest of the property. We talked about possibly revisiting the inspection. I think there was some discussion about holding that off until the weather got better. There was also some discussion about the possibility of having less than all of us do that inspection. I don't know what people's preferences are. We can follow up and pursue an inspection again, or I will this time I'll have a conversation with the Criterion folks, let them know that we would like to have a conversation with them regarding the status of the project. Before we get to that, as a point of interest, I inquired at the town hall what the status is of the permit. The permit that is implicated by the Historic District Commission's decision was issued in June of 2019. So the Historic District Commission decision does not expire until 2 years have elapsed. So that will be in June of 2021. So regrettably, I'm not sure what, if any, action the Historic District Commission can take because they are still covered by that decision. But equally importantly, I just asked at Town Hall what was the status of the permit, and it does not appear, for what it's worth, it does not appear that the Criterion folks ever sought to renew or extend their permit. So just so that folks are aware, the permit that is issued by the building department is for a 6-month period. After the conclusion of that 6 months, an applicant can request that it be extended, and it would be extended for an additional 6 months up to a 2-year period. But the fact of the matter is that they did not and have not apparently ever sought to extend their permit. I don't know whether that helps in terms of pushing this along. It would have helped with respect to 7981 Salem Street, because as we talked about before, if that building, which was under our jurisdiction, had not been demolished and the permit had expired, they would have technically had to come back to us. But because 186 did not come before us because it wasn't a demolition, that section of our regulations don't apply. So I guess my only question is if Virginia or Amelia or Pino or Julie or Jack, because you were on the Historic District Commission, are you aware, is there any hook within the guidelines or bylaws or requirements of the Historic District that would implicate their being involved if the permit has lapsed? I don't think so, but I just wanted to ask.
Oh, go ahead, Virginia.
I don't know the bylaw by heart, but we could look it up and check it out.
Yeah. For the record, I don't know the bylaw by heart, nor am I an expert in it, but I will say that this question crossed my mind earlier today, and I did take a look at the bylaw, and I didn't see anything in it that would govern. Just so you know, in our case, our provision that would have required 7981 to come back to us is not in the bylaw. It's in our rules and regulations. So I guess the more pertinent question is whether there's anything in your rules and regulations that talk about it. I would assume not, but I'm pretty sure it's not in the bylaw, Virginia. Amelia, what were you going to say?
Can you clarify for me the two different permits you just talked about? I got confused. One that's HDC and one that's has expired?
No, I'm sorry. Then if I confused it, there's only one permit I'm talking about.
Okay.
In June of 2019, they filed for a permit to do the work within 186 Summer and within the other building. And that work is the work that is covered by your certificate of appropriateness. That's the only permit. But what you have to do, what I was saying was, when you apply for a permit to do that work, it's valid for 6 months. You have to go back after 6 months and renew that permit. And it will be renewed. It is within the discretion of the building inspector, but it will be renewed for an additional 6 months generally. And then again, after that 6 months have elapsed, if it's not completed, then the applicant can come back and renew it again for 6 months, and then can come back and renew it again for 6 months. I believe the regulations talk about a 2-year period. And I will also say, as we already did, the certificate of appropriateness requires that the work be completed within 2 months from when the permit was issued. So the work has to be completed within 2 months of June of 2019. I hope that clarifies it, Amelia.
So what's expiring in June? So what has expired then? Because I thought you said one expired in June 2021 and then one already had. Did I get that
No,
wrong?
no. What expires in June of 2021 is the language in your certificate of appropriateness. And it isn't that the language expires, but what your certificate of appropriateness says that an applicant must complete the work required or contained within your certificate of appropriateness. That work must be completed within 2 years of the issuance of the permit covering that work. So under the terms of your certificate of appropriateness from the Historic District Commission, that work at 186 has to be completed by June of 2021.
Okay.
But the other issue is that they apparently do not currently have a valid permit to do the work with the building, with the town, with the building department, because they have not ever gone forward to renew the permit that was issued in June of 2019.
Okay.
I don't know that doesn't affect our interest, I don't believe, because I believe they can just sit on it. That we're trying to figure out if there's any kind of hook to get them to commit to moving this project along. I don't believe that the fact that their permit has expired at this point will do that. It would, I mean, what had happened in the past, you may remember, is that Mark Duppel, at the urging of some residents in the area, sent a letter to them, and we could conceivably ask Glenn to send a letter to the Criterion folks, just inquiring, your permit's expired, nothing has happened, I just want to know what the status is. We could ask Glenn to do that. Mark was willing to do it, presumably Glenn might, so that is one step that we could take. So back to that discussion, I mean, I'm just trying to inquire whether or not there's any interest in taking any steps. And the steps that I'm aware of are that, asking the building department to follow up. Number 2, inviting them to come to our next meeting in October. And number 3, just pushing to see if we can get the site visit going forward again. So let me turn to all you folks and see if there's any comments.
What happens after the 2 years run out with the, what is it, certificate of appropriateness? What is the document with the historic district?
Well,
what happens after that 2 year?
I will turn to the folks on the Historic District Commission, but my understanding is that would then mean that the applicants no longer have a valid certificate of appropriateness, which means they would be unable to go forward with the work until they go back to the Historic District Commission. Am I correct, guys?
That's
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. I'd have to go back and double check, but that sounds accurate.
On the certificate of appropriateness, I know that, I'm sorry, Virginia, I know that it specifically says that it's valid for the certificate of appropriateness is valid for 2 years. And it then goes on to say, the work must be completed within 2 years from the date of first issuance. So that to me would suggest, Pino, that if the work isn't completed, then they no longer have a valid certificate of appropriateness. Virginia, I'm sorry.
So I would encourage that we continue trying to put their feet to the fire and get some resolution to this longstanding issue.
Agreed. Would you be interested in, and other folks, should we renew our request for an inspection? Should we invite them to come to our next meeting, or should we do both?
Do all.
Jonathan,
Other
what
thoughts?
about talking to the town's legal counsel about this? I mean, we've been dealing with this for the last 3 years, and nothing has happened, and it's very clear that the intent is demolition by neglect. And we have no real teeth. We can have an inspection, we can write letters, et cetera, but it seems to me that this has gone beyond us, and either the town has an interest in preserving this building or they don't.
Good points.
And I just don't see any point.
I lost you, Jack. Uh-oh.
No, I turned off my audio.
Okay.
I just don't see that there's anything to be gained by going around and around and around. That either we take much stronger legal recommendations, or we just have to accept the fact that they're going to let it be demolished over time. I go by that building every day, and it is getting worse and worse and worse. And the bracing of the porch is a major problem. And I see people there occasionally. They've done some repair work on the fence, which was a request of the neighbors. But it's very clear that the building is just going to collapse.
Okay. I hear you. Just a couple of comments, and then get some other input. First of all, Jack, I took a look at the history of this project, and it has been 4 years since. Actually, I'm not even sure it's been 4 years. I actually think that. Not I think, I know, going back, this goes back to 2014 when Ron and I were initially new members on the Historical Commission. It was the year 2014, and the hearing that was taking place, or the meeting that was taking place, concerned Criterion's application on 186. And we then had public meetings and public hearings starting in 2014. So this has actually been going on for 6 years. They only bought it, I think, purchased it in 2017, but the process has been going on for much longer than that. So I agree with you about that. Just my own comment about the suggestion that we talk to town council, which may very well be a good idea, but just my own comment is the urgency of that request notwithstanding, we don't have the wherewithal to compel town council to do anything, nor do I even know whether town council has the legal right to do anything. So the mere fact of elevating it to our conversation with town council and having the conversation with them doesn't necessarily suggest that there's anything further that they can or will do. And also to that point, one other thing we talked about was, and I would suggest as an alternative to your suggestion, because I think it's a good one, but perhaps we can approach it a different way, which would be to either send a letter or attend or ask to attend a select board meeting and have this item put on the agenda for a select board meeting, at which we ask, as well as in a letter perhaps to the select board, that steps be taken to consult with town council to see if anything can be done. So that's just my comment to what you're suggesting. Any other comments, folks? Amelia.
In the preservation agreement, it says that the Criterion is legally required to
Maintain.
keep the this condition of the property where it was when they bought it. Now, if the cupola is falling down and they didn't fix it, they just stuck a stick up, that means that they are violating the agreement, I would think. So now HDC is a signatory to that document, but this board is as well. Is that right?
As is the town.
So maybe that's the way to go to town council, because they clearly recognize that the building is deteriorating, but they're not acting in an appropriate manner in accord with the written agreement.
Okay, again, and I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to play the devil's advocate. I'm not necessarily endorsing the positions I'm taking, but I just feel like it's important to play both sides. You're absolutely correct, and we've talked several times. What I originally thought was that our best hook to compel them to act on this is the preservation restriction agreement, because that is a legally binding document. And you're right, it does specifically require them to preserve and maintain those elements of the building inside and out, such that it preserves those aspects of the building that are historically significant. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what it is. So they have to maintain all those elements of the building inside and out, such that the items that are historically significant and that were identified, I guess, in the inventory and by us and by the Historic District Commission are preserved. And they have to take steps to do that. So what we talked about before was trying to compel them under that authority to do that. But where we got hung up is that in order to do that, we need to or should be able to identify areas that are in need of maintenance or preservation. We can't just, I would not want to go to town council or to the select board and say, you folks need to act under your authority for them to make them maintain the building without being able to show that they're not maintaining the building. And in order to do that, and we've talked about this before, one second, Jack, in order to do this, we wanted to get inside, and we talked about having some expert structural engineer or architect or somebody participate in that inspection with us so that we could identify specific items or components or issues or areas that are in need of repair. And I remember we discussed this in the context of my talking with the building inspector about this, because he had specifically said, Mark had specifically said that he was not aware of any particular need about that building and encouraged us to do an inspection. He did not feel that he could or would do it. He did say that we and the other signatories to the preservation restriction agreement could. So I totally agree with you, and I do still strongly assert that the preservation restriction agreement is a great vehicle to compel them to take care of that, at least to step up, to start to either take care of that building and/or in addition do the renovation work they wanted to do. But I don't think we can do it without having any evidence that there is a need to do that. Jack, what were you going to say?
Jonathan, as Amelia says, the evidence is right there. The pergola that is over the porch, that's a major component of the historic significance of that building, is falling down, and so they put up a big piece of shoring. There's no evidence that is required beyond what is obvious from the street. The porch is falling down, and they've had to try to keep it from falling down. They haven't done any repair work. They've just put up shoring.
Well, with all due respect, we don't know that it's falling down.
It's no longer valid.
You don't know that it's falling down. You do know that there is a brace on it, but I just keep saying the same thing. Unless somebody can specifically identify it, number one. And number two, Jack, with all due respect, if we're going to take this issue on, I would rather be prepared with respect to any number of other items in addition to the pergola on the outside. That's why I strongly suggest that we do the inspection and get a list of items that require repair. That's just my comment. I mean, obviously, this is up to the commission to decide. Any other comments? Sam?
It seems like we would, we've got someone's got to have photos of this building 2 years ago or whenever they got started. And now that'd be a great place to start. I bet you could circle about half a dozen areas.
I have the photos. Ron took the photos, I think.
So that would, I think, be enough to go to select board or council and, you know, to say they're violating this agreement.
I have the photos right here, and with all due respect, I don't think they show what you would like them to show. And I'd be happy to share these. I think we've all seen them at a prior meeting. This is going back probably a year. But I'm looking at them right now, and they clearly show significant deterioration in the paint, particularly on that north side of the building. But other than that, and they also show significant problems in the unattached building, the carriage house in the back. But it's my opinion. I'm looking at the inside pictures, and I'd be happy to go over these with people. They are not going to show what you think they're going to show. Comments?
We were gonna do another tour in April, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It got it continued, obviously, because of the pandemic.
Jonathan, have you identified an expert that we can tap to go and look with us? I seem to recall at the time Jack and Ron were going to look, but I don't know if they're interested in going in a group at this point.
I had advocated that we consult with a outside engineer or architect. I had spoken to Jeff Struble, who is an engineer, who gave me, I believe, the names of some people that we could consult with. When we discussed this the last time, I know that Ron, and I believe Jack as well, took the position that we didn't need to hire or take in with us any consultants, that Jack as an architect and Ron as an engineer would take care of that. My personal opinion is that I'd rather have an outside person do that. But again, I defer to you folks. Ron.
I think my comment was, be careful what you wish for. You may pay an architect and a professional a lot of money, and you'll hate the response you get. And I think what Jack and I was saying was it's highly likely that we would not see anything different than we saw last time with the photographs on the interior. If we took photographs of the exterior, you'll see increasing degradation. And as Jack said, there's a reason why they showed up that porch. It's ready to fall down.
So what's the commission's pleasure?
Do we have funds to pay somebody professional to go and look with us?
Sure.
We do? Because now that you said we have these lists, I remember, and if I remember correctly, it was going to be an expensive proposition.
I can't say that I recall what it was going to be. You talking about hiring somebody from outside, Amelia?
Yeah.
I don't think it would be more than $1,000 or a couple of $1,000. I don't really recall, and I'd be happy to check back.
If you,
Ron, yes.
got to think of the end state. What do you expect to accomplish? And will it result in the owner picking up the tempo and starting modifications? I doubt that very much. I think
Fair enough.
right now he's got us between a rock and a hard place. He's not moving. It appears to me that he's just dragging his feet. He's switched architects, he switched builders, and it looks like it's a foregone conclusion that ultimately he's just going to run this into the ground. So there may be some legal recourse. I don't know what that is. It's possible that with the help of the building inspector or the the Board of Selectmen, because they have a vested interest in this as well. My feeling is they should step up and take a position on this and provide significant help to preserve this historic property, probably one of the most significant ones on town.
Can I just chime in for a minute?
Sure.
So I was just going through the emails from a couple of years ago from Eric Russell of Miaris and Harrington, and just trying to understand like if anything has measurably changed from the last time we engaged with town council on this. And it does seem like the questions that are being asked are different, and we're in a little bit of a different situation now. Almost 2 years has gone by since those conversations were initiated. So I think that, I can't promise anything, but I think that if you can put the concerns in writing to me, I can run them through some people above the pay scale than I am at town hall and see if we can re-engage town council to just give us an idea of whether there's any like legal argument that could be made that they're in violation of their preservation restriction.
That's great.
That's helpful, Julie. Can you remind me what those emails were and what those comments were from Eric previously? Because I don't remember that.
Yeah, so they were related to whether the permit that was issued actually related to any of the work that was governed by the HDC's permits and by the preservation restriction. So it's the expiration date doesn't kick in until 2 years after a building permit is issued that for work related to what's under the jurisdiction of that restriction.
Gotcha.
There was that, which they, I guess, at that point, they were able to make the argument that the permit that they got did not trigger that. And then there was a question about taxation and whether the property could be taxed, could be assessed, continued or reassessed as a single family since it hadn't been put into a nonprofit use. And that town council did indicate that the nonprofit use has to be active within 2 years, or the town can reassess it as a single family use. And when I followed up with the tax assessor, it was being assessed as a single family. So that had already kicked in. Those were the two big things from those emails. And there was like a lot of back and forth I was just going through. So the question seemed to me to be a little bit different than what you were asking back then. And so I think that you should take a multi-pronged approach to this. I think one thing you can do, like I mentioned, is shoot me an email that kind of summarizes what your concerns are. And if you want to include a picture of the brace that you're talking about, that would probably be helpful. And then if you can try to reach out to either Criterion, Robert Littleton or his team or his attorney, I don't know if you have all the contact information, and see if they're amenable to you doing a site visit. And maybe it would end up just being 2 people or, just some people that you have either on the commission or at arm's length. I think that would be a good strategy. And then the other thing that you had mentioned, you said, sorry. Also having them come talk to you. I think you should just try them all.
Great.
Jonathan?
Yes, Ron?
I think we should send a Bowles letter to Criterion, essentially asking what their intentions are and demand a project plan with events and dates. We've never got that. We've been sort of playing around with this guy, but somehow we need to confront him with a demand, essentially, a very polite one, without all the legal language. We don't need to quote public law and all of that. Just ask him the question, what are your intentions and what is your plan? We want specifics. And we're fed up. And so are the neighbors. And so should the Board of Selectmen and the building inspector.
Isn't that what we did to get the date for the visit in April, and they were mad, right?
Not to that extent.
Yeah. You both of you are right. Yeah, we did. I mean, the tone in that letter was a little harsh, admittedly, and they responded in kind. To which I then responded, suggesting that, you know, the miscommunication, and it did lay that out pretty well. The miscommunication is understandable given, you know, the each side's position on this, and that perhaps if there were better communication, which we would look forward to at the site visit. So I do think all of this is very helpful. Go ahead, Ron.
But I think there's some accusations in there that sort of caused their ire. And my suggestion is no accusation.
Right.
What is your plan? And be specific. We want to understand your intentions, and we want assurance that your intentions are honorable. And if I had them in a room, I'd whack them on the side of the heads and say, right now, it looks to me like your intentions are not honorable. But I wouldn't say that because that's a pissing contest.
It didn't work.
Yeah. This is being recorded, incidentally, Jonathan. Yeah, we may see all of us on our TV one of these evenings, I think. I see in the top left of my screen, it says being recorded.
Yeah, they are being recorded. And Julie, I'm sure would be happy to share them with you.
Is one of the participants. Does everybody aware that this was being recorded at the outset of the meeting?
I am. I can't speak for others.
You were? Okay.
To your point, thank you for clarifying that. It does jog my memory about that, and I do recall that was the discussion. And Eric did weigh in at the time. The only permit that had been extant was the permit to do the foundation work in the basement, right. And that technically wasn't under the jurisdiction of the Historic District Commission. So the circumstances are different. So all of these ideas are great ideas. I will start to draft a letter, not a letter. I will start to draft a summary for you, Julie, and we'll go from there. We will pursue communicating back with Criterion with regard to determining what their intentions are, similar to what you're describing, Ron, and also asking to revisit the site visit. Right. I am pretty confident, although it was back in April, but I know that when I postponed it back then, Julie, I had a specific discussion with them about understanding the circumstances being postponed due to the pandemic situation, and that we had every intention of pursuing it at some subsequent point, and they were amenable at that point. So I would be surprised if they didn't continue to be amenable.
One more point. We are a half hour beyond the 531 Main Street appointment.
Right, and as I said at the outset, I knew that they weren't coming.
Oh, okay, okay.
That actually was the 7:30 appointment. And
yeah, that's right too. I understand.
That was 5:31. But I don't think the folks for the 8:30 appointment are coming either. We have a new visitor. Who do we have?
Can you tell them your name? Her name is Gwyn Ayel.
Gwyn Ayel.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, John.
Well, I'm just parroting what you said. If you had spelled it for me, I probably would have mispronounced it. Those are gorgeous eyes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, are you referring to Virginia?
Virginia as well. I've already told her.
The screen there for a moment.
I've already had that conversation with Virginia, but let me stay out of trouble. Adorable, Julie. Okay, so anything else about 186? I register everyone's frustration with this. Believe me, I share it. So let's just see where we can go from here. I don't know, have you guys you folks on the Historic District, have you been talking about this at all, or have you been having any meetings about this?
No.
Oh,
Okay.
last month, one of the neighbors came and talked to us.
Yeah.
Isn't that right? That's one
Yeah,
that's
Everett mentioned that.
going on, but I don't remember who it was.
There was some concerns, I think it was across the street, and there were concerns about termites.
Right. Yep. And that if her house was infested and she's on top of it, the house across the street might be infested, but nobody's on top of it. Yep.
Right. I should also point out, in my discussions with Everett, I might have mentioned this before, that we talked about this issue of the site visits. Because I had mentioned to him that we had talked about going back on the site visit, and he had suggested that we alternate site visits, that the Historic District Commission wouldn't necessarily join the Historical Commission if we did have a site visit, but rather 3 or 4 months after ours, that the Historic District Commission would do a site visit just to sort of keep some kind of contemporaneous information. But I like what we're talking about tonight, and I particularly think it's appropriate to send them a letter asking their intentions. I got to say, for the record, I don't think that that's going to make any difference, with all due respect. They have gone on the record before, and it has meant very little, if anything. In fact, in this discussion about what their intentions were, I was having some communication between me and Mark, and he had some communication with the contractor, indicating that they were going to be discussing their plans the following day and would be getting back to him. And he never heard from him again, despite repeated efforts to find out. So they are incredibly uncooperative, and I wouldn't anticipate that a letter asking their intentions, or even a follow-up letter indicating what those intentions were going to be worth very much more than the ink on that piece of paper. But it is worth doing.
They did indicate that they were going to be compelled to modify their plans.
Yeah, you think they've had enough time?
Probably to reduce the cost. That's a very expensive project.
Oh yeah, it's huge. It's a huge project, and that's why we're concerned about whether it's going to be going forward. But anyhow, enough said on that. Let's talk about the utility box vinyl wrap project. Julie, do you have those photographs? Did everybody take a look at that stuff? I know I've talked to several of you, and you have. We are pretty much rounding third base for home, so I would like to sort of nail down any remaining issues with that. All of those photos are the photos that we. I don't envision doing any more than 2. One going on one side and then wrapping around, and then another one on the back side and wrapping around. So I think that's basically sufficient. I think I had also mentioned that I have copies of the town seal. I have a color version of it, and I have a black and white version of it to provide to Franklin, the artist. And then we also included some narrative that Virginia is largely responsible for. And I did some of it and made some edits to some of it. The question about that is, if you remember the PowerPoint presentation that we had from Franklin on the utility boxes that he did in Marlborough and Plymouth and Newton and the other towns, had the photograph. They then had the logo, and I think I'm going to initially leave it to him to initially place the logo. And then somewhere also on the side, it stated Town of Reading, or in this case, Town of Newton, but it stated, Town of Reading. And then down at the bottom, there was on some of them, not all of them, incredibly abbreviated narrative to the extent of Lake Cochituate, 1840, or Chestnut Street, 1890, and that was all that was on those. So Virginia and I have included a lot more language in the text, and we have gone back and forth about how much should be on. And I am concerned that is far more text than is going to be useful or productive or positive. And I just wanted to have that discussion, because that, unless people have any issues with the photographs, that's probably pretty well set. But I do want to finalize what, if any, narrative or text we ought to have on these boxes. So yes, Amelia, I'm sorry.
I understand you want to reduce the number of words as captions, but what you've given us, the grammar is kind of scary. There are fragments, there are verbs missing. There's got to be a way for it to be grammatically correct and still give information.
Okay. let's do this. Let's go, I guess, unless anybody has any comments that they want to make at this point about the specific photographs, I'm happy to go through them. But I think it may be more helpful to go through the text pages, Julie, and then we can talk about that. Was that Jack?
Yes.
Go ahead, Jack.
I feel very strongly that there should be no text other than the explanation of the location and the date. That this text or this amount of text is going to distract from the photograph and the composition of the photograph. And so I would be very hesitant to put any of this text on it. And I do want to say that you guys did a really good job of selecting the photographs. They're wonderful photographs. And they really give a sense of the history of that particular part of the town. But leave off the text.
Yeah, they speak for themselves.
Okay. Just to further this discussion, I don't necessarily disagree. I initially was of the opinion that we should say something like, for the one that's on Lowell Street, just say, Lowell Street and Main Street, 1890 or 1897, whatever the date is. That's probably sufficient. I'm going to leave it to Virginia to add her comments. I mean, the narrative is extremely helpful, but I tend to agree with Jack. I'm not so sure I agree, Ron, that the pictures speak for themselves. To a certain extent, they do. They unequivocally do. But I will say that I do find the narrative very helpful to me for orienting the pictures with respect to the current configuration. So I found them helpful, even though the picture does essentially speak for itself. And I would love to be able to add additional language for the viewer. But I do agree with what I think what both of you are saying is that it's going to distract from the photograph. And if it distracts from the photograph, then that's a negative that I'm not sure I want to do. I had in the back of my mind,
Jonathan, do it through an app.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Jonathan. Was that, yeah, I heard you, Jack. What I was just going to say that was that we talked before about having that, not that URL, I forget what it's called.
QR
code. I don't know how to do that, and I don't know if anybody else knows how to do that, but I'd be happy to pursue that with Franklin. But those are my thoughts. I agree, Jack, and I think that's probably the better way to go.
Would the text go? Is there a way to put the? I think there's. I like I kind of like the text, but I totally get not having less text too. But is the intention to have it obviously on the front of the picture? Is there a way to do it on the side, on the narrow side of the box, so it wouldn't really cover the picture as much?
The only problem with that, it's a good idea, Pino. The only problem with that, this is me. Yes, sorry. You should let other people do more talking. If you see the work that he does, he sort of folds the picture, the actual photograph, around the edge, so you can actually see the photograph. It's actually there. There was one that he did where he had the narrative on the side, but then you wouldn't have the photograph image on the side. Number one. And number two, the only drawback to what you're suggesting is the side is barely, 6 or 8 inches in width. So my fear is that if you were to put text on it, it would literally fill up, that entire section. And again, I don't know how that would look. So those are my comments. Virginia, I know you had your hand raised, and then I'm going to shut up and let other people talk.
No, I was going to suggest the QR code as well. I have found that people are either going to be so interested in the photos that they want to know more about them. And that way we could have the text separate somewhere, or that people could look at when they were inspired to do so. But it is difficult to introduce these photos to people when there's no landmarks left for them to identify with. So it's a juggling act.
I agree. Any other comments, folks?
Yeah, I think the QR thing is going to be great to provide those folks who want lots of information. But there has to be something, even if it's a sentence, to say, what is this that we're looking at in relation to where we're standing? So as long as that's made clear and it doesn't interfere too much with the action in the photo, I think will be good.
Okay, my just a question. Does anybody know technically how to do the QR code? And I'd be happy to discuss it with Franklin, but and I'd be happy to even inquire from Franklin. I didn't see that any of his photos had to do that, but that's going to be beyond my technical expertise. And number two, I see you, Sam, but number two, if I agree with you, something needs to be on it. Jack is right, that it needs to say something, which is what I think Ron and you, Sam, are saying, and actually all of us are saying. I'd love some help in terms of coming up with what that 1 or 2 word title is. So I'd love to have somebody volunteer to do that. And number 3, if we do the QR code, is this narrative that we did for these photos what folks would want to see, or do we want to take another stab at writing something and more? And I ask those questions with a little hesitancy, because the more time we put into this, the less likely we're going to be able to get to Franklin to start this season. Comments?
I would research the QR thing, see what I can come up with.
Great.
Jonathan, they can be 2 separate tasks. You can go right ahead with the photographs.
Agreed.
And then come up with the app at a later time. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But let's get the photographs up. And I believe that all you need to do is say the street location and the date. You don't need to have anything more than that.
So the box that's on Lowell Street, just say Lowell Street 1890, and then on the because those 2 pictures had different dates, 1892 and 1897. The box on Harnden Street, just say Harnden Street with the date on each of those photos, and similarly for the others.
Yes, that's correct.
Yep.
Agreed?
Yes, I agree.
Thanks, Ron.
Can I jump in really?
Yes, please.
So you guys probably know Andrew McNichol. He's the staff planner who coordinated the painted art boxes around town. And he's going to be working on a similar kind of thing with QR codes and kind of like this art trail, like walking tour kind of thing through the downtown with those. And so he could definitely, I hate to volunteer him when he's not here to but I know he would help you, and this could all be incorporated into that bigger picture project, that art trail kind of idea. So I think it would be good if that was coordinated.
That's great. I'll check in with him, because I was on that committee that picked the
It should be
art.
combined.
So
too.
yeah, that'd be great.
What did you say, Ron?
They should be combined. The town art.
Yeah.
The phase that's being sponsored by the folk at town hall and the historical commission, it's all utility box art, and I would think the same app should cover all the boxes.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Although my only question about that is, I again, not knowing the technical aspects of it, my thought was that what Franklin is doing, he's going to be digitally incorporating the text into the image, into the digital image that he's going to be creating. And I had just assumed, hopefully wrongly, that all of this detail had to be incorporated into that image. I'm beginning to think that you folks seem to be suggesting that the QR aspect of it can be done afterwards, can be done on the utility box after the digital image with the title on it is already there.
I think what we're saying is the photographic part of the process should continue, and there should be essentially no text on those utility boxes except maybe the date and the street, and the app would cover whatever text we all come up with. It'll be after the fact, and there's experts out there that'll take care of all of that. We really don't need to worry about it except to provide some sort of text that will go into the app at some appropriate time.
I think we would have to put something.
I was just going to say, I'm sorry, Pino, Ron, I was just going to say, as long as it is in fact the case that the QR code and information can be added to these utility boxes after the image is already created and placed on the box.
I think it's probably just a matter of taking the QR code that probably comes as a sticker and putting it on each of the boxes.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be too much of a hassle.
Okay. That being the case, I'm sorry, Pino, did you want to say something else?
No, that's what I was going to say. It'd probably be like a transparent decal or sticker that you would just put on so that people could scan it.
It's just like a museum, Jonathan. Rembrandt didn't do his painting at the same.
Unfortunately, Jack, you got cut off. So repeat it.
I said it's just like a museum, Jonathan. Rembrandt did not do his painting at the same time as the act that you get when you go to the museum. So it's two separate endeavors.
So you mean the QR code didn't exist when Rembrandt was painting? Okay, moving along.
I've heard some people say that it did.
Fair point. The only, I think I understand, and I just want to turn to Virginia. So it sounds as though, and I'm happy to do this, it sounds as though what we're talking about is just sending the photographs with the seal, and on each of the photographs, simply stating on each of the boxes, Woburn Street, 1890, Harnden Street, 1890, et cetera, et cetera. Since Virginia, you and I spent a good deal of time working on this project up to now, I just want to make sure you're on board. That seems to be the direction we're talking about. And then we will work out this, this additional QR information afterwards. Are you on board on that?
Yes, I am. My only concern about using the QR codes is that people will be walking up to some of these at very busy traffic locations to get the snap of the QR code. So we've got to think about safety too. Perhaps we won't have that many people interested. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
fair point.
this gives Virginia the opportunity to write a very, very long discussion about each of the locations. And I think we should ask Virginia to narrate it.
Oh, no.
Okay, folks. So thank you. This is very helpful. I plan then to, in the next week, put this together and send it off to Franklin and go from there. I should also comment, Jack and I had this conversation. I'm anticipating this would have been the case anyway, but that what Franklin will do is he will create, he is going to have to come up with some creative way in which he's going to be doing the photographs and incorporating the seal and the title Town of Reading, and then either meet with us or send to us those drafts of that material so that we could comment on it before it's finalized. I think that's a good idea, and I'm sure he was probably going to do that anyway, but I just wanted to mention that to everybody. Okay, thank you. Let's go to the, since we have 15 minutes before our next likely scheduled meeting, for which I don't think they're going to be appearing. Let's talk about the bike shelter, Julie, which is the project you had mentioned to me. And I had shared this with everybody, so they're all aware.
Okay, great. Let me just pull up some of the stuff that I have. So while I pull it up, I'll just explain a little bit. So every year the town gets a disbursement from the state. It's called the Tnc Disbursement, and that's the Transportation Network Company, I think is what it stands for. It's basically, we get a percentage of any Uber or Lyft or app ride that originates in Reading. So we get a disbursement every year for however, I forget if it's 10 cents or 20 cents for each ride. Hold on, I'm not able to access my documents. 1 second. So, let's see if I'm. Right.
Everybody's seen it, so we at least know what we're talking about.
Okay, I got a little bit more information today.
I should just, while you're working on that, Julie, let me just comment that, and I know everybody's already aware of this, the depot obviously is an enormously historical and important structure. It's also covered by a deed restriction. I took a look at the deed restriction, and I don't know, unless anybody has a different opinion, obviously this particular subject is clearly outside the bounds of the deed restriction terms. But I did express our appreciation and gratitude for Julie giving us the opportunity to provide input.
Julie, could you, while we're waiting, could you tell us again the actual location? Is it right where the bike rack is now?
So yeah, sorry, I think my first email wasn't like super clear, but I have a picture and I can, let me just pull up the picture real quick. So it's the south side of the tracks, but the north side of the depot building. So it's like if you're standing at the Met project and you're looking at the depot building, it's over to the left. And there's a bike rack there now that's like a grid style, like with the like slits like this that are grids. So actually, here's a picture. I'll just screen share it really quick of what's there now. Do you all see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, what we're looking to do in this location is put in a bike shelter. Let me back up a little history. So we've heard a lot over the years that we need better bike capacity at the train. And when we did some surveys last fall, the Reimagine Reading survey, the Reimagine Reading ice cream social that we had, like the big downtown, how do you use downtown survey, we got a lot of feedback about, additional bike capacity and bike infrastructure around town. So we decided to use some of the funds that we got from the state. It's a small amount of money that we get each year, but it could cover like a couple bike racks or bike shelters at the depot. So we decided to allocate some of those funds to improving our bike infrastructure. And I went down to the depot with the town engineering and DPW, and we measured out some spaces, and we looked and kind of strategized about what might work. And we thought that this location right here, where there's this existing grid rack that's outdated and hard to use and should be replaced, would be a good location to put a shelter. And I have some specs on that, and I have a quote, and I also got some pictures that show what the materials can look like in the real world. So I can share those too. Let me just.
Julie, it looks like if you were to put that double-decker structure there, it would obscure the view of the depot building.
Right, so that's partly why I'm here, because that's not the intention. I don't want to do that. And there are some ways we can maybe work with that. I'll show you what I have.
Just shift it down. Now this one here is actually on Lincoln Street, and you're looking up Haven, right?
Yeah.
Julie.
And then there's another one on the other side.
Julie, who's responsible for maintaining that pathetic little plot of grass behind the bike rack? Is that the MBTA?
So actually we own, I believe the town owns that entire, like the whole parking lot there and everything, like all the land kind of under the platform and in and around the depot. So I guess it's technically the town's responsibility, but I could check on that because I could be wrong. But like one of the things about these bike racks, so we would purchase them through the Metropolitan Area Planning Council collective purchasing contract. So they negotiate lower rates and they vet the vendors. I actually was on the team that went through the bid opening with them and like vetted the different vendors this year. And so one of the requirements is that these be purchased and be put on town-owned land. And so I do believe that we can check that box with this location and that we are responsible for maintaining that.
Do you have any other selections that we could look at?
So I just wanted to go through this one really quick first.
Are those open on the sides?
So it would need a roof, but it doesn't have to have sides or a back. It could be open, and I can show you a picture that they sent me. Having trouble getting this stuff. Here we go.
I went onto the website and I saw them with bikes installed in there. There's 8 in a row and then 8 above, right? So it handled 16 bikes.
Right. So I do believe it's about 10 feet tall. I think it's about, we did measure, I'm having trouble remembering, but I think it's about 8 feet long, 10 feet tall, and maybe 6 or 7 feet.
Yeah.
Coming. So yeah, like it could be something like this where you just have the roof and don't have the sides, and then you could see through. Wouldn't block any signage that the MBTA has up for the train.
So you know when you enter an MBTA bus, or you enter the door, and on the file, and just the first seat to the left says reserved for handicapped folks and those Jack Williams' age. So we meant to reserve a couple of spots on the lower level for seniors and Jack.
I think also that you can
Jonathan, you want to hang me on the second level?
That's not Jonathan, that's Ron.
I put my bike up in a rack like this in the garage. It's upside down, and I hang it by the wheels, and put it up there a few years ago. And just to do the test, I went out there the other day, and something has happened since I put that bike up there, and it's a lot heavier. Even though
how do you get them up on that second
it's a road bike.
So actually, to that point that Ron's making, we originally were looking at a skinnier one where you hang the bike. But there were a few complications with the vendor on that one. And then MAPC really, like, people that deal with transportation and biking there are really like anti the like vertical hanging bikes. They think that they're actually quite difficult for people to use.
Yeah, they are.
Unless you're like a super avid, jacked up, person who bikes all the time. Like they present more problems than solutions, I guess. So they were really recommending that we look more at the horizontal storage.
Yeah, this is the best bet.
Point about like you still have to like hoist it.
Wouldn't you have to lift it pretty high to get that second level? I wouldn't be able to use that.
How do you get them up
A
there?
valet from town hall to help us.
Yeah.
Maybe the folks from 531 Main can add that lift to this.
Can I say something?
By all means.
I think this is pretty ugly, and it's right next to it's about 8 feet from the train station. I would rather see the town use the money to put in 1 or 2 really much nicer bike racks that are on the ground and that are aesthetically more pleasing. If you're not, the grass space there is big enough for multiple on the ground bike racks, rather than trying to put this. As it is, the backside of the MBTA signage, which is new, but the backside of the MBT signage is like a sow's ass. It's just terrible. And so I would recommend that we rethink this whole space.
So one of the reasons that we thought this location would be actually in some ways ideal is because, let me just get that other photo. Because it is kind of an eyesore right here with the transformer and the back of the MBTA sign. And it is a little bit tucked in, and there already is a bike rack there. So it's a place people are used to using to put bikes, and it's a little bit, it's not out of the way, but it's a little bit of an ugly corner of this whole site.
Julie, do you have an image of the bike shed that has the sides on it?
I don't have a photo of it in the real world, but I have the spec. I can put what the spec looks like.
I will say, I tend to agree with Jack that image that you showed is not at all, it just isn't at all compatible. I mean, where it was looked like it was by the side of, a Minuteman Bikeway or some other bikeway where people have their bikes stored next to a park. This is a historical building, and when that picture that you showed us, to me, was kind of jarring, similar in the way that Jack is describing. But I remember when I looked at this, just seeing it as an enclosed shelter, it didn't have the same effect on me. But I don't know what an actual real image of this would look like. And it would block that side.
I agree. I actually prefer it with the enclosure, and then also like it has it still offers, you can see like where my cursor is, you can still see through the top, and then the panels could be like a not entirely opaque. They have opal, have bronze, and then they have a clear one actually. I asked for some photos of like the full thing, but they didn't send them to me yet. In time for this meeting. They just sent me that one photo and then a picture of like what the bronze material looks like. But I agree that I prefer the one with the sides. I just, obviously I'm here to get your input.
I'm sorry, guys, but the sides aren't going to make any difference. Why don't we do this right? The lawn area is not maintained. And it's owned by the town. Why doesn't the town pave it with bricks so it's a very nice looking space, and put some European type bike racks in that what is then a little space that is clearly delineated for the bicycles.
I just want to chime in really quick because there is a separation requirement between the transformer, like usually, and I'm not sure, and I have to look into this still, whether that's an MBTA transformer or an RMLD transformer, but usually the RMLD requires a certain amount of distance so they can access their transformers. So that might be a space that's off limits for us to actually use.
How important is it to have sides and a cover on a bike rack? They're all weather devices, and just have one level, not a double level, but just one level, a more conventional bike rack without sides and without top. Just improve the quality of the rack and the design you have in there right now. And that way it would not sort of interfere with the aesthetic appeal of the depot. Depot is still there. It really needs some work to get it properly, restored with new roof and this sort of thing. But to me, that's much too close. What you're proposing, much too close, much too big, somewhat obtrusive. The double level is unnecessary, and I don't think you need sides and a roof on it.
Yeah.
I was just trying to be responsive to a lot of the feedback that we got from people who participated in the survey about not just having bike storage, but also having like a bike shelter. So it was something that was requested by other residents. But to your point, like I have been looking at some of those like corral racks. They're just like kind of this similar thing that you see all around. And I have a proposal to put one of those on the other side of the tracks, actually flanking, like there's one there now, and kind of putting it on the tree on the other side.
But I think just because people request things doesn't mean it's the best thing to do. I think we're seeing too much of that now, today anyway. There needs to be some judgment and common sense applied to, and some engineering applied to the end result, as opposed to just responding. I'm like, it's a bad choice of word, but knee-jerk response to what a survey says. And those people are certainly strong proponents for bike racks anyway. And so you have sort of a biased input.
Well, I think that the point is, this is all valid, and I actually would like to hear from the other commission members, because, I mean, this is not something for which we as a commission have authority or control.
All we're doing is sharing opinions. We have no authority.
Exactly, right.
Right.
So I just want to hear since we have this opportunity to hear from everyone else who was interested. But your point, I mean, I agree from the standpoint of the historical commission perspective. I entirely agree with Ron and with Jack. And I guess the question is, from that perspective, is there some better or more appropriate way to reconcile what are competing interests here? Is there some way to sort of bring them into better harmony, I guess is the point. And other folks here, if you have any comments, please provide them.
I think for folks who want to ride their bike and then take the train into town to go to work, having a roof is a nice idea. I don't think that double rack is going to be very useful. And it seemed awfully big for that space. And it's not the prettiest thing, but I think having a nice, more bike capacity and something with a roof would be appreciated by folks who bike. And I don't know if anyone makes any that are a little more attractive, but that would be cool.
Other thoughts?
I am wondering, Julia, if there are other spots maybe on the other side of the tracks, which then wouldn't feel jarring with the historical structure?
So we did look at the other side, and I felt like it was going to be way more obtrusive for a few reasons I'll bring up on that.
Jonathan, are we done with the comments?
No, I think Amelia's in the middle of one, and Julie, I think, was looking to provide a response. And I don't know whether Pino or Virginia have any other comments, but let's just give Julie an opportunity to. Julie, are you working on that?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up like Street View by the train. There were a few reasons why we decided we didn't want to put a shelter on the other side of the tracks. That doesn't mean there might not be a good location, like still on the south side, but like just not right where I proposed, that we could talk about. I would be super open to like any ideas you might have about where we might put something like this, but so let me
over on that south side, over on Woburn Street, where I don't even know if this is still there, but there was that board to pay for the parking across Woburn Street. I know there's parking there, and I don't know if there's any space, but that's pretty far out of the way, and not in any sight of the depot building. All the way over Woburn Street.
I think the existing location that you're proposing, Julie, is the perfectly appropriate location for a bike rack. And what I'm suggesting is that we have a more overall exploration of that area, and that we consider, although it's anathema to my friend engineer Ron Weston, I think that we need to consider the overall aesthetics, a word that he is unfamiliar with, and that you need to look at the grass. There's a little tree there that's also pathetic, and that space could be made into a very, very reasonable and aesthetically acceptable area for bicycles. It just needs some additional thought.
So you're talking about the first picture I showed, not the one that's on the screen now, right, Jack?
That's correct. I don't want to see a bike rack along this side of the building at all. I think that area where the bike rack now is very appropriate for an aesthetically okay. Somebody from the town needs to sit down and design that space.
Could we say architecturally appropriate?
We could say somebody with some design experience. That might be appropriate, Ron. But I think that the town should design that space and figure out what to do with all of it, and not just the bike rack, and make it into something that is compatible with the train station, with the pedestrian flow along there, all of those things.
So, I mean, that's not a bad idea. I definitely agree it's not the most attractive place, but like in the short term, that might be a sort of a longer term thing. In the short term, like we could put a bike rack in that we could always take out and then reincorporate into a redesign in the future. And I just wanted to say really quick that the other location where I have like a smaller bike rack, kind of similar to the one that's here already, that I'm proposing is over on this side. But we didn't feel like this side of the tracks would be appropriate for a shelter, because we felt like it would really be obtrusive to the building. And then also there's some signage for the MBTA we didn't want to block. Like we did think should we put it here in place of this one? But then we're blocking the sign, and it's really, it seems like to me way more intrusive to put it on this side.
I agree with you. Keep it where it is and just design a better space. Simple as that.
Alternatively, can you move this view down to Woburn Street?
Yeah, were you talking about this side of the tracks or the other side, John?
I'm talking about the other side, the westbound
Okay,
side.
yeah. So we'll just keep going.
Past the platform, all the way past Woburn Street.
It's a little bit of a ways down, right? All right.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Well, people park their cars down there, so. And there's that space right there too. And I mean, not that that's great on this side, but I'm talking about actually the other side of this. Can you cross Woburn?
I did already. You want me to go back across?
Yeah,
Sorry.
keep going. Yeah, I'm talking about where that gentleman is standing.
Okay.
Is there any space around over there? I mean, I know that's all landscaped area now, but.
I didn't consider this area, but I can. I would have to see if it's actually also town owned.
And maybe MBTA owned.
Why do you want to tear up a nicely landscaped space, Jonathan, when you can put the bike rack in a space that's not landscaped and in fact landscape it? Because
the problem, Jack, from my opinion, first of all, I didn't remember that this was a landscaped space, but the problem is you have competing interests. The space where you're talking about, you'd be damaging a perfectly appropriate historical view. So you can pick your poison. Are you gonna pull up some landscaping?
Jonathan,
a shelter
Jonathan,
there?
you're not listening to what I'm saying.
I'm listening to what you're saying, Jack. I don't agree with you.
Well, you're wrong.
Again, I don't agree with you.
The space, Julie, if you could go back to the existing bike rack that's on the other side, it's just a simple bike rack in a brick paved little space.
On the Lincoln Street side?
Yes. Go back to that, Julie, and see how simple. No, on the other side of the tracks.
Oh, all right. Sorry.
Go over to the other side of the tracks,
Sure.
please.
This is Lincoln Street.
Yeah, he's talking about the Haven Street side, apparently.
Yeah, over on the Haven Street, yeah. Right there, right.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Right. There we go.
See that bike rack? It's in a brick paved space, and it's very simple. It's unobtrusive. It doesn't detract from the building. Just do the same thing on the other side where the existing bike rack is. Pave it with brick. Get rid of those silly little planter, and put a one-story bike rack there. I'm not sure why you all see this as such a difficult proposition. To me, it's very straightforward.
Even simple.
I just want to reiterate that I don't know that we can actually be that close to the transformer.
Well, please find out.
Any other, Virginia Pino, any other comments? Or anybody else, but I mean, I want to afford everyone an opportunity to present some points of view on this.
I support the lower style bike rack, like the corral one that you see everywhere.
Okay.
That means there's no option that people like that would would allow for a roof. We're saying no to that.
Well, we're not saying no to that.
Well-
Jack is saying no to that, and Pino.
Well, I said I didn't see the need for it, and it does tend to add to the obtrusiveness of any bike structure. And I'd say the same thing regarding the sides. I don't feel unnecessary, and I think a single level is okay.
I'm just going to look and see if there's a shorter one with a roof. There might be in the.
I feel like a roof is a very good idea. However, I feel like you have to weigh it with the obstruction that a roof would make in that area compared to the handful or less of people that would ride to the train station every day just because there's a roof there compared to just a normal bike rack.
Right.
Yeah, but we're not bikers, right? So we don't know. Maybe it's
Yeah,
very
see-
important and maybe
Right,
lots.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how many people ride each day, and I don't know how many people would ride if there was a shelter compared to if there were just a more regular bike racks.
I don't
Yeah,
suppose that was in the survey, Julie?
Well, when we did a visual preference survey with shelters versus regular bike racks, and there was a lot of interest in both. You know, it's like the thing that we're always trying to plan for is like, if you build it, they will come. But then there's also like, what's the actual demand, right? So, you know, I mean, I used to bike every day actually to the train, and I much preferred to put my bike in a shelter, especially with like snow and rain. And so just from a personal point of view, I think shelters are really important. But, you know, I mean, the reason I'm here tonight is because I wasn't just about to purchase this and put it up without getting your input, because this is an important historical structure in town. So, you know, I'm open to whatever ideas you guys have. And if you have any thoughts of like other locations to look at for a shelter, you know, it doesn't have to be right there.
yeah. I guess, I mean, the bottom line, I think from enough of the input here, and we can continue talking about it because I'm guessing, Julie, that Guy and Brooks have not showed up for the 8:30. So that being the case, we can certainly keep talking more about this. But I mean, it seems as though from the perspective of the folks that from the historical commission perspective, the less obtrusive version at the site that you're talking about, which would just be not the 2-tier, the 1-tier, and the sort of UTAC-shaped version is probably preferred. And I would go along with that as well. But I would say that from the standpoint of the biking community, I agree with what Amelia suggested. And just I mean, I bike as well, although I never bike to work. But I have no doubt that folks would bike to work, and those folks that did bike to work would much prefer a shelter. And I even found, looking at it from that perspective, that bench was a great idea as well. The problem is it's basically not compatible with the structure of the historical structure. So again, I would say if that interest is going to prevail, then I'd put it someplace else. And I still think that putting it over on the other side of the tracks is a better idea. Not on this side of the tracks on Haven Street, but over down that Woburn area, either in that landscaped area or beyond it, if there's someplace to put it. And that might be able to incorporate both interests better. But if it is going to be in this spot, I think you've heard from enough people that that shed structure is definitely not compatible with the historical perspective. Any other? I mean, you want to keep talking?
Virginia
about this?
has her hand raised, John.
Oh, I can only see 4 of us at a time. Virginia.
Okay. I'd like to give a little background on the use of bikes. As a member of Walkable Reading, we've decorated the bikes in the summertime with a basket of flowers in a little bike, and we have to alternate our responsibilities of watering the plants. So every time I go and water the plants in the bike rack, the bike racks are filled to overflowing. There's a great number of people that cycle to the depot in order to take the train into Boston. And although the proposed structure would visually impact the depot's historic aspects, I would say, one, that it would only be a temporary structure and could easily be removed should that need to take place. But preferably, I would like to see it down further to Woburn Street and go with the structure there, and kind of leave the depot on its own. Thank you.
Thanks, Virginia. Any other thoughts or comments? I can't see everybody, but it does not appear that there are.
I don't see any other hands raised or anything.
Well, Julie, I hope that smorgasbord was helpful.
No, it's good. It's good to know your thoughts. I'll revisit it and see what I can figure out and probably circle back with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I would welcome, as you continue to sort of reconcile all of these interests and you guys work towards a particular proposal, I would welcome an opportunity again for us to have some input and comment. So thanks very much, and hopefully we can do this again.
Oh, and actually just one more thing I want to add, because I think Sam was wondering if there were nicer options. And there are 4 pre-selected, pre-qualified vendors, and only 3 of them do storage. And as far as I remember, but I'll double check, only 2 of them do shelters, and they're like very similar. Neither is like a beautiful historical looking thing. And this company doesn't have like a lower shelter. This is the only one they have that would have a horizontal storage. They have a really tall where you could do vertical storage, but the options are not, there aren't many options, I guess is what I'm saying. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate the feedback.
All right, thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, it doesn't look like we're going to be talking about Eaton Street. I will follow up with them and invite them to our next meeting, but that's the best we can do with that. Gould Street, Jack, I'm going to guess there isn't anything. I mean, obviously the project is moving along, but nothing else has been happening with respect to the community event room?
I was there yesterday. You can actually see the space. No, nothing. I haven't had any response back from the developer. Of course, like any typical developer, it was hurry up and wait. But you can see the room as you face the building. It's to the left of the entranceway, and it has a great big window opening. No, we don't see the window yet. And then the back wall, of course, is the concrete block wall of the elevator shaft. So if you want to get a sense of the space, you can walk by and see it. It's not a very big space.
Yeah.
And but it does have a very prominent street location.
Great. Out of curiosity, were you working on putting back together that frame around those?
I'd like to give it to you, Jonathan. It's in my basement, and I did fix it, but I'd like to get rid of it and donate it to you or the archives.
Well, I appreciate that, but I don't. The question I think was, do you not think it should go on the wall in the space?
Absolutely not.
or any place else in the building?
No.
Okay.
What are you talking about? That I missed.
If you remember, one of the our items that we got from Newt Spur is a framed.
Jonathan, I'll go get it and show it to you.
Do it. Go get it. We all have a picture. We all have a photograph of it. It's a framed collage that I guess New Ace did. I don't know when. Ron, you and I have seen it personally. It's probably 3 feet by 2 feet, and it has the many different versions of the corners. It has them clear, it has them in black, it has them in gold, it has them in all different colors. So it's and it's the actual corners. I mean, if it's not going to go in the building, it's definitely going to go in the archives.
But Jack's the person that we kind of used as the lead person to decide what would be appropriate for that space, and his recommendation is it not be used.
Yeah, that's fine with me. That's why I'm asking. What he had said originally was that we identified it as an item that we were going to use, and he said that the frame was falling apart and he was going to put it back together. So that's why I'm asking him that question, Ron.
Yeah, okay.
There it is.
I mean, my personal opinion is I think it's great, but if our
Give it to you, Jonathan. You can have it on your wall.
Yeah, I don't want it. There's a whole host of other items that we're going to have to find the space for that still is actually in Newt Spur's place. But the question is it going to be going in the building or is it going to be going in the archives?
I like it. We
I
could
do too.
always unframe it and just stow it in the archives. Doesn't
Yeah,
need-
fine. That's fine.
if it's not going to get done.
I agree.
I had a question
You guys should
about-
go. We can talk about this. Go ahead.
Oh, were there any other, what else is potentially going to go up in that space right now?
Jack?
We don't know yet, Samantha. We gave them all of the material that we thought was relevant, and they were going to work with their designers and come back to us. So far, they haven't come back to us. That's why I say it's hurry up and wait. But when they do, I will bring it before this committee.
You may recall that among the items that we all have seen are some patent prints of the equipment, and I know that those are, I don't remember, Jack, how many there were, but there were several images of the machinery and equipment that Lester Riley had invented with the actual patent print information. And I know that we gave them that material, and I think, Jack, you had expressed favorably that stuff somehow should be included. There also were two items. One was the punch press that he had invented, that Lester Riley had invented as well. It was a box, and I think, Jack, we didn't give them the box, but we gave them just the actual punch machine from which they were hand pressing the corners. And there was something else. There was some other piece of equipment.
It was a scale.
Right?
It was a counting machine.
Right.
Yeah, then I think for the normal consumer that might be walking by that place, to be able to see little fixtures like that, to me, it's kind of interesting. I mean, they're nicely engineered, and they're also aesthetically attractive, possibly even in an architectural sense.
I want to remind the board that you had designated me as the person in charge of the design of this space, and I take that responsibility very strongly to heart, which means that I will come and present to you one or two alternatives of what it's going to be.
Perfect, Jack.
Right, we all agree, but I remind you that as our designee, you should be willing to accept input from the commission. And I would also remind you that the same commission could retract its designation if it chose to.
Jonathan, it looks as though he's been interacting with the developer and hasn't heard back. And I think Jack will show enough initiative to push them for feedback at the right time. So I think it's in good hands, John.
Always the peacemaker, Ron, and that's why it's a good thing in my image of the members here. You are between me and Jack, so that's really good to see.
You could just call me the voice of moderation.
I would if I could. Okay.
But I will be very frank with you. We're not coming back to the board to work on the design of this space. We're coming back to show the board what in fact it may be. And that's two different things. That was the agreement. And I don't want to step on anybody's feet. However, that's the way it is.
Okay, well, I hear you. I disagree with you, and we'll leave it at that. Moving on, Jack, finances. Did I send you a copy of the digital format for the budget?
Yes, you did. Yes.
Okay. We're now getting them digitally instead of hard copies, and I actually have several of the hard copies. But I'm happy to report that the August version of the budget contained the $2,000 that we received from the grants, and it also, Virginia, included the $1,300 that were encumbered for the artwork project. So we have $3,300 to apply to that, and we still have our $1,500 in the budget. And Jack,
also Jonathan, $125 in gifts, if you remember.
Yes, that are also in the finances, right? And actually, we have more than that, I think, in that account. Virginia, yes.
I'm sorry, I wasn't fast enough, but when we talk about Ace Art, I wanted you to see this photograph and the corners on it. Can you see who it is?
I'd recognize her anywhere.
Right.
How big is that
Mom
picture?
had a picture taken of me, and there are those Ace Art corners, and you notice my fingers are over the year.
Very clever. You were adorable then, and you're adorable now.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry to interrupt.
Do you want to talk about the archives policy? I know we all have it, and I'm happy to have that conversation now if you want to do it. Julie, you have a copy of that? Virginia.
Samantha,
Sorry, Jack.
Sorry.
I really thought Sam did a great job on it. It is a generalization and a not terribly honed into specifics. So there's a lot of leeway, and yet the direction is right there. I was very pleased with it. You did a great job.
I second that. Thank you for doing it. Sam, were you going to say something?
Sorry, I was inspired by Ron's packet he gave us with all of sort of the other stuff that the RHC does. We've got that nice binder with all the documents and things. So I thought eventually have one for the archive. So, eventually we'd, have a little things written out a little more about, how to accession something, just a simple, one page that says, when we decide to take something in, it gets recorded, it gets put in the inventory, it gets assigned a place, that sort of real basic steps so that whoever's working with the archive can just follow along. And I know Virginia's done a lot of things. She's shown me how she does a bunch of things. So we just kind of keep that rolling. And having, it'd be nice to have a little more I think, formality in deciding what we're going to keep and what we want to maybe not keep. So I don't know if that's something the whole group would work with, or it might be good to have a smaller group that just kind of deals with that sort of stuff. And especially as can finally get back in there and start to organize things a little bit more. I know there were all those oversized things that still haven't really found a home. So I thought as that gets done, we can kind of flesh this out a little bit more. But
Oh, it
that
was
was
great.
nice.
I thought it was great.
Jonathan, do we, how do we move this forward? First, I'd like to say, Samantha, a wonderful job. Good work.
Oh, thank you.
I would recommend that it be a smaller committee that decides on acquisitions. And Jonathan, how do we move this forward in a process? Do we eventually vote to accept it?
Well, to me, that makes sense. I think that, Jack, that's what we ought to do. I think we should go through it, and I don't mean in painstaking detail, but I mean, I had 2 or 3 edits to make. I think we ought to go through each page, get whatever revisions or edits anybody has, and then if we're happy with it, I think we ought to have a motion to accept the draft as the Commission's archive policy manual. And we'll add that, and we should, add it to our formal documents.
Yeah, can do. Could maybe Julie could run through the pages for us?
Are we going to do this now? Go through it page by page?
Well, if you want to get it officially voted on, I think there's no other way of doing it. Do you have a problem with doing that? I mean, I don't think we're going to have a lot of substantive changes to it.
Okay, I mean, I would be happy just to get a final, and we vote on the final. But
if we want to do that, if folks want to send me any changes, I can just prepare that for the next meeting. We can vote on the final draft then.
I would propose that we do that.
That would save a little time and.
Okay. Do you mind? I did have 1 or 2 questions then. Because I wasn't sure that I understood necessarily all of it.
Gotcha.
In the section on, my edits were really small. They were very, very small, but I did have some questions. In the section, Julie, section 2, collection policies, the second paragraph.
Yep.
I wasn't sure what that actually was referring to. A list of town archive property that is not part of the collection will be kept and stored separately. What are you talking about there?
Things in the archive now that we use when we like at the town garden committee and other things that aren't part of the official collection of the town archive, but are stuff that we use. So the easels for display and all that stuff. I think, I don't know, it doesn't need to be in a separate room, but I think we should know like what's sort of like office things and stuff we use as a group versus like this is an official thing that belongs to the town archive.
Right. You mean, I get it now. I just didn't understand. Like the canopy, if it was in there. Or okay, I got it.
Just so that.
Did somebody have?
What's
that? Somebody have their hand raised?
Yep.
I'm sorry. Virginia.
I had the same question on that paragraph.
Yeah. I can make it more clear.
Right. I was going to say a list of historical commission property.
Oh, yes.
That is not.
Oh, you're right.
But that just somehow we've got to make it known that we need more space for the things. And I'm not sure how to promote that, but we've got to keep working for a little more space because it's ridiculous to have our props and our easels and everything else in an archives. It just doesn't, isn't right.
Yeah, it's confusing too. And then makes it, so if we could identify that, as we're kind of tidying, make sure.
All we really need is a storage closet somewhere in town hall that's separate.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. But in the meantime, I get it now, and we should identify those other items that are not technically archive archival items, but they're stored in the same place. So I understand.
Right.
In that same
Yeah.
section, where you're mentioning the commission will collect items relevant to the history, and then you say it will consider for inclusion the following list of formats. And then looking at that list, I don't know if I'm being too particular, but I thought we should add things like, letters and other written materials, because they weren't otherwise included in how you would express it.
That's bound and unbound manuscripts. It's library speak for letters and correspondence.
Okay.
But I could add that as well, because that would be a little more specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I didn't think it was included, and thank you for clarifying that for me. I also added what I called historical artifacts. We have a piece of brick, a piece of cobblestone. We have that beautifully framed by Jack Newace Corners picture that's going to be in there. But
you should put my basement down as one of the ancillary storage areas.
Yeah.
By the way, what do you want me to do with that, Jonathan?
Well, whenever we get the opportunity, we're going to have to put that in the archives. So it's going to go in the archives.
Okay, I take no responsibility, but I'll hang on to it.
Okay, I hear you. And if Julie, if you think you want me to get into the archives and put it in there, I will if you think that's appropriate. But I'm happy to have it there. We have our canopy in Pino's house, so we have extensive supplemental space elsewhere. Okay.
No, we could mention artifacts too, just so it covers whatever kinds of things we think we want to have.
Okay. In the section A, accessioning and deaccessioning, the committee will create a catalog record for these items and find an appropriate storage place. Were you also talking about outside the archive or inside the archive? I didn't understand that.
I can't see that text yet.
It's accessioning / deaccessioning, Julie. Oh yeah, there you go. So right there under accessions.
Yeah, I just meant, it could be more specific. Just, I think we should have an electronic record and maybe a paper record, so a file somewhere with our RHC documents.
Okay. And I was also thinking, by the way, we have those file cabinets that have folders of our cases that we've handled. I guess that falls in that other category you were talking about other properties.
Yeah, those accessions. I was thinking of the town report that things we get from Laura. That those are things that they're sort of town records, but we should
street list.
Yeah, those sorts of things. So right now
and
they're
the donations
all over.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so you're saying that we'll create a catalog record for these items. I mean, within the archives.
We have our inventory list, which is so just add it. Everything that we've got, ideally, a lot of it's been cataloged, but as things come in, we should always give it a new record in our electronic inventory list on Access that lives on the computer down there.
Okay. A deed of gift form. What in that next section on donations?
Yep.
If approved, a deed of gift form. I don't know what that is. Do we have one, or do we have to make? We'll make one.
I have to make one. That's another sort of library term for just something acknowledging the gift that's been given to the repository. So just a simple form we could fill out.
Yeah, in the past, we've just used a letter form.
Yeah.
But usually you do have a policy written out, and we should develop one.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be real wordy or anything. Just
we did a letter form, Jack, when we not donated, but we loaned to Gould Street the materials that they had.
Right.
We did a form, and we had him sign off on it. So something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess my next question was on the processing description. The committee will create a record in the town archive inventory. Is this different from or in addition to the catalog record?
I meant that to be the same thing. So
Oh, you did? Okay.
I will go through and make sure I'm referring to this. I think since it's called the inventory, I think, Virginia, on the computer, I'll use that same phrase. So
Yeah, room contents.
the room contents record. Okay.
Okay, down in access and use.
Yeah.
If you can keep going down, Julie. There you go. I just added a sentence about that log. Are you eliminating that notebook that we write in every time we go in there? Should that also be included in there?
Oh.
Or do we doing
This was
something different?
more, I was thinking more of like people using individual, things that are part of the collection rather than. So I think we should still maintain, we should put something in there saying we'll maintain a log of.
Right.
And in the date.
Well, that's what, okay, so I'll send that to you. I added that, and that's just what okay, I'll send it to you.
No, I think that's
in the
good
next-
to have that. I think it's good to have that as part of our procedures is we keep
Okay.
a log of visits to the archive.
In the next section under inventory, I wasn't sure what that meant. An electronic inventory of the archive will be maintained to provide access to the collections by the commission members. What is that?
That's the room contents list.
Oh, it's the room contents
Yeah.
list. Okay.
So I'll go. Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of
No, it's
changed
great.
my
I just want
phrasing
to.
throughout, so that needs to be more consistent.
Yeah, I think it's great. I just wanted to make sure I understood it and we were on the same page.
Yeah.
In the electronic record section, I think this may be my last big question.
Yeah.
You're talking about digital collection materials. I'm not sure what this was talking about. Are you talking about materials that are at the library, that are with the Antiquarian Society? What?
No, any sort of we don't have a collection of photos that have been digitized that we keep and we let people use the digital file of. So we don't, but that's very common now for libraries to have digital collections. So I just wanted to kind of talk a bit about, so we don't have anything that's part of our collections material that's just a digital file, or maybe we do and we should identify that, make sure we've kind of, got a list of it. There may be things we have that we just have electronically that we want to keep track of.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The other half of that that I was thinking was, do we want to maintain any inventory of the historical archive material that's retained elsewhere, like at the library or at the Antiquarian Society? Like should we somehow identify and document that material? Just something for you to think about.
Yeah, I know the townwide preservation group, we were working on having a sort of a master inventory so that we all know what each other has. But I think having a list of stuff that we know belongs to the historical commission but lives other places.
Right.
That's something
which we do have, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. You've shown me that list before, Virginia.
Right.
Okay. So somehow that should be incorporated.
Yeah.
Okay. Those were my only questions about understanding it. So unless anybody else has any questions, then I like that idea that we'll send you whatever additions we want, and then maybe at the next meeting, we'll vote to approve it, Jack. Okay?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's great. It's a great thing to do, and it's a great thing to have. Appreciate it. Okay. Membership. We're still without having filled the chair position. I know we've talked about doing this when we have full membership. Charlene's not here. We can put it on the next agenda. I don't know what people want to do, but I would love to at some point before this year is over, decide who's going to be the chair. I guess we'll just add it to the agenda for next time and hope that we have full membership. Okay.
Jonathan,
Yeah.
we might suggest that people give some consideration as to rotating the chairmanship, and that somebody might want to discreetly suggest that they'd be willing to serve.
Great point. I completely endorse that. I know we've talked about this before. I was on the CPDC for 17 years, and every year it was a tradition that another person would take on the position, actually all of the positions. So we elected 17 times when I was there, a different chair. It's not something that the person has to assume all of the responsibility or know everything about everything historical. I'm a perfect example of that. And I would volunteer certainly myself to assist whoever would be willing to do that. And I know I can speak for others of us who have been who have been the chair when I've been on the commission. Ron, Charlene, and Virginia would also, I'm sure, have no doubt be willing to support and sort of co-chair with a small c, whoever would step up. But it's something that I think is important that everybody experience. So I would welcome hearing from anybody who might be interested in doing it for the remainder of the year.
I think it's a topic we could take up, but after we railroad you into serving another year as chair.
Which would be my third, not that
And we
I'm
could use
complaining.
this, and serving under the extraordinary restraints associated with COVID. You know, some might get a medal for that. Frankly, I don't see any other option than to ask you to continue to serve for another year. I mean, if you look at, I'm now an associate member. Charlene and Virginia have been chair for many, many years. Amelia is quite new, very, very capable. Jack, I'm not sure whether he's willing to take it on. So
And
what I have right now is that you're the prime candidate, and if you're willing to do it, we could even vote tonight to encourage you to take the position if you would agree to take it.
Well, I appreciate that, Ron.
I think, Jonathan, you should be the chair in perpetuity.
That's funny. I was thinking of nominating you, Jack.
No, I'm temperamentally incapable of working in a group. You know me. I just do everything and then I'd show it to you when it was all done. So I'm not, but one possibility is that we increase the potential pool by some of us stepping down as permanent members to associate members.
Well, that's certainly something to entertain as well, I guess. And I'm happy to consider that. Ron has shown the way. But for right now, let's. I appreciate your suggestion, Ron. What I'd rather do, particularly in light of what Virginia suggested, is I would at least like to put this on the agenda for October and see if anybody else is interested in talking to me about taking on this responsibility. I would do it only because there apparently is nobody else. It's not something that I'm relishing doing. So I would only do it not to leave the commission high and dry. So I'd rather see if there's anybody else who wants to consider doing it. And let's discuss this in October. I will say, however, that I believe, Jack, you and I, our terms are probably, we just were reappointed for 3 years. I will not be assuming this position in the subsequent fiscal year. So if I do end up doing it for this year, somebody else is going to have to step up. So I'm not in the position of hearing, we think you should stay on because we don't know what else to do. Somebody's going to have to step up to the plate. So let's take it up in October. Okay.
So,
Pino.
have you had any more communication with those one or two gentlemen who were interested in joining as associate members?
No, I completely forgot. I invited them to our last meeting, and then I forgot to invite them to this meeting. So I will do that. I'm glad you reminded me. I did invite them to the last meeting. I know they obviously didn't appear. I can't recall whether they said they weren't able to or not. I did hear back from them, so I don't want to just to present that to you. That's a great point, and I will definitely remind them to attend or invite them to attend our October meeting. It's a little different and it's a little hard in this Zoom context. And I don't know, Julie, is there any possibility that we may get back into having physical meetings at Town Hall anytime this fiscal year? Or is that just not at all likely to happen?
This fiscal year goes till next June 30th. So
right.
Before the end of the fiscal year. I don't know about before the end of the calendar year. I don't have any updates on that. I get the sense that it's kind of wait and see what happens with the schools. I know there's a lot of priorities competing for management staff time right now, and everyone is for the most part finding it's successful to work from home. So, I don't have any updates on that. I probably shouldn't say too much.
Okay.
More.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. I just think, Pino, definitely it's a great point, and I forgot for this month. I did invite them to last month, but it's a little awkward for somebody who, has never participated, even though they want to. It's a little awkward to sort of participate in a Zoom context and get any sense about what these meetings are like. But I definitely will do that, and I should do that. Okay, enough said on that. That brings us to Hillcrest and 832 Main Street. I did call both homeowners and indicated that we hadn't forgotten. We are intending to do it this year. We understood that given the tight schedule with the limited amount of Zoom meetings, we weren't able to do it for this month, but possibly, and I don't think we can do it in October because we'll have to wait. I don't think we should do it in October because we have to do that 30-day notice requirement, but I did say that we would be doing it before the end of the year. And I wanted to hear from them if they were no longer interested, and I haven't heard that. So I will anticipate that we will probably put it on for the November meeting so we can prepare I can prepare the notices that have to go out to them and then to the abutters and to everybody else. Any other comments about that? Okay. New business. Anybody have any new business? Virginia? No. Excellent.
Amelia does.
Amelia, yes.
Yes. So I heard from Jane D'Onofrio, who is the woman who's in charge of the RMLD calendar. And she had some research questions, and she asked me and Virginia, but I did it because Virginia
you did very well, Amelia.
Thank you. So she just had a couple of questions because she obviously can't access libraries like she usually does and microfilm and such. So I helped out where I could, and that's that.
Great. Boy, time goes fast, doesn't it? And it feels like it was not that long ago that we did this for the last calendar. Thanks, Amelia.
Yep.
The only other, yes, Julie. I didn't hear you. Nothing.
I just said I didn't raise my hand. I was just moving. Probably seeing.
Sorry. The only thing that I would point out is as new business, everybody received it. Now I can't, for the life of me, remember where I received this. It's a list of town opportunities for public input. Julie, you can probably let me know where I saw this. Everybody got it in the mail. I don't know if it was in our water bill or something, but I just want to bring it. It was in the water bill. Just bring it to people's attention. Good, thank you. There were a lot of meetings coming up, all Zoom. Some of them didn't have dates, but just take note of them, not necessarily historical related, but we all may have some interest. And I know, Jack, I was thinking there's the Walker's Brook Drive corridor and related intersection analysis virtual public meeting. You and I had talked at some point about the development and possible development on that corridor. So you all may have interest in that stuff. There's one coming up immediately on the downtown parking. So just check it out. And if you're interested, join up, and then you can fill us in at the next meeting. Any other comments about that? Any other new business? And that brings us to the minutes. Thank you, Amelia. They were great. Julie, do you have a copy of that? No. Oh,
I
okay.
don't think so, but if Amelia, if you want to email it to me right now, I can pull it up.
I had I know that, and I take it this is the way we prefer to do it, and I know I prefer to do it this way, that Amelia will send out to everybody the draft minutes at some point, appropriate point before our next meeting, and we'll get back in the habit of providing revisions back to Amelia, which she will then include and send around, and that will be the document that we vote on. Is that the way, Amelia? That's the way we did it this time. Is that the way you prefer to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just sent that, Julie. Did you see it?
Not yet, but I'll.
I had, let me just find it on my screen, because I had one or two. I don't know if other people had.
Got it.
No, that's not it. Bear with me for a second. Let me find mine with. That's not it. Okay.
Do you see it now on the screen?
Yep.
I'm looking at mine, and I I'll walk through mine, and then if other people have them, jump in. I'm on page 1. Actually, this is yours, Ron. In the others present, you had mentioned Joe Marcineau, and he was with the architect with Matt Cummings. It's Marceau, Marceau. And thank you, Ron, for catching that.
Jonathan, I was present for that meeting, but muted.
I agree, and I thought about that, about changing that, and maybe we should say, just, I don't know, but say in parentheses that, Jack attended, but there were technical issues with his Zoom participation.
Okay, I can do that.
I agree, Jack, and I'm sorry I didn't raise that before. If you're okay with me, Amelia, in the utility box vinyl wrap, you got to change the word bank in the Reading Cooperative Bank. Really simple.
Oh, yeah.
In 94 Salem Street on the second page,
Yep.
Andrew and Laura are not longtime Reading residents. I put a strike through that, but you left it in.
Oh, no, I meant to take that out. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I took that out too.
They're residents. On page 3, in, where are we? 16 Eaton Street, in page 3, the second motion.
Yep. I
It
saw
should
that
be-
too.
Yeah, with the potential.
Potential. Yeah.
And that's it for me.
Okay. One
So
question.
I have on 94 Salem Street,
Yes.
actually the second paragraph, I guess, says VA suggested that the team, blah, blah. PO, the contractor said they will dismantle, and I would just strike the house because it's actually the addition. Just say, he said they will dismantle by hand.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
You've covered.
Ron, any others?
Nope, that's it.
Well, I
Amelia,
had
sorry.
a question because when Virginia gave me feedback, she thought the first motions didn't need to be in the minutes. I'm not sure why. But Jonathan, you didn't suggest taking them out, so I just left them there.
Are you talking about the motion that we have sufficient evidence?
Yes, I think that's what she struck through, but I'm not sure why. Maybe we could ask Virginia.
It's worth discussing. I know, and this goes back to, I think, Charlene's version of, I work off of a sheet when we do these hearings And I took it from the version that Charlene was using for originally for 186, and she probably took it from earlier ones. And we always did have a motion to determine whether we had sufficient facts or whether we had to continue the hearing to another day. That being the case, I would think it should be. But Virginia, what do you say?
Well, the issue was the motion applied to 16 Eaton Street and it was in the wrong place. So I deleted the whole motion there under.
But we did it in both ones. We did it in both hearings.
No,
Yeah.
the
'cause
reference.
Both hearings were demo delay hearings. So
Yes.
we
But they weren't done at the same time. So if you're going in sequence, they, I made, let's see, we're at the top of the page. Yeah. That motion that is included there regarding 16 Eaton Street has not taken place yet until after you have the hearing. So it was just in the wrong place.
we did have the hearing.
Yeah, but where is the text for the hearing? It comes down after that.
No, the text for the hearing is on page 2. It starts in the middle of page 2.
Yes. I'm sorry, which page are we on right now?
Well, Amelia, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I'm not sure in which context you were raising that. But we did do that same motion for both
Right.
of those two hearings, and it does show up as that motion.
Yes, I agree. I just thought the text was written in the wrong place. That was my correction when I sent it when it was on page 2. I'm not sure where we at. We're on page 3 now, so I apologize, but
Okay. Well, no apologies, but I'm looking at, if you look at page
Is
2.
it okay as it is?
What, Ron?
Is it okay as it is in the draft now?
It looks that way to me. Are you okay with it, Virginia? Take a
It
look
looks
at it.
fine to me.
yes.
It's a two-step process,
Okay.
2 motions.
Yeah. So I think we've answered that question, Amelia. And
Okay.
it should stay that way, and I think they're worded correctly. Are there other proposed revisions from anyone on the minutes?
Not for me. Wasn't there anyway.
If not, I'm happy to move that we accept the minutes of August 13th, 2020 as revised. Is there a second?
Second,
Jack has seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, and let's do the roll call if I can find my list. Amelia?
Yes.
Jonathan, yes. Sam?
Yes.
Jack?
yes.
Virginia?
Yes.
Okay, so the minutes are approved. Thank you. All that's left, I believe, is picking the next date in October. So let's look at our calendars. And Julie, I take it we should probably stay with Thursday, if that's okay for everybody at this point?
Ugh. I prefer not the third Thursday of the month.
Which is the 15th, Virginia?
Yeah, I don't have a calendar.
I'm looking at a calendar. The first Thursday is the 1st, the second is the 8th, and then the 15th and the 22nd. I'm okay on any of those. Do you want to do, what's today, the 17th? You want to stay, you want to do the 15th? Oh, is that not good for you, Virginia?
Yeah, the third Thursday of the month, I have a conflict.
So you want to do the 8th, the second Thursday, October 8th? Anybody
Sure.
have a problem? Jack? That's a problem? What about the 22nd for you or for anybody? All good. All good. All good. Thumbs up. So October 22nd at 7 p.m. Okay. I guess that brings us to close the meeting. Do I need a motion for that?
Can I make a motion?
To close the meeting? I'll second it. Oh, no, Jack seconded it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor. Okay, we got to work it through. Amelia,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Virginia,
Yes.
Jonathan, yes. We are closed, and I believe we are done.
Excellent.
Now, I
Thanks, Julie.
see,